I think that if that was ever to be initiated into law or something they impose in the courts as far as equal liability, I think for sure we would see a major change in our judicial system as far as, plea bargains, the bail system, which is, corrupt and just, it's financial warfare. Basically, once you
Yeah.
have to, if you're truly innocent and you have to defend yourself, or if you've been, there's been a misrepresentation of the law in order to get you to plead out, that definitely needs to be addressed. And that would create major change in our system. I've never heard anybody really talk about that as far as equal financial liability. Outside of that, and the fact that people having to deal with circumstances which require them to get an attorney, and you having firsthand having dealt with having to get an attorney to deal with your situation. What would you suggest or tell somebody having dealing with their own situation?
Under this current situation right now, are you talking about as a criminal defendant, or
As a you being a civilian, I mean, outside of working in law enforcement, because like you just were saying, to somebody who having to deal with the courts, if they had to get a Johnny Cochran or somebody to defend them, but if you don't have those resources, I mean, what is their out, man? I mean, what is their options? Because you worked on the other side, and you seen what what you were up against, and now you're having to deal with it civilly. I mean, what does the average person, what chance do they stand?
all right? So one of the reasons I reached out to you is because I feel like that your followers are the kind of people that need to bring this kind of legislation up and keep it up. That we need to change that system now. That there needs to be equal jeopardy by the state as there is with the defendant. Now, under this current situation, I can only speak from my experience. You always, if you're innocent, you use every resource that you can possibly get to fight that to fight that charge. If you didn't do it, you fight it. If you can't afford Johnny Cochran, and you're going to learn pretty quick if your attorney is a go-getter or not. I think the moment that you realize that your attorney is not a go-getter, or that there's not enough effort going towards your defense, then you've got to get motivated. So there's a saying, it goes something like, the law favors the prepared. The law favors the diligent. Those that are actively involved in the defense of their case will, stand the better chance of having a favorable outcome. Now, we all know too that it's also a roll of the dice. We all know that once that thing gets to a jury, it all depends on how they painted it and how receptive that jury is to it, But if you don't have the kind of attorney that can poke huge holes in a prosecution's case, you're probably going to go down. Now, if you can't afford Johnny Cochran, we're giving him some good plug time, right? So, the only, I mean, I hesitate to say this, if you're having to make that decision, you're in that dilemma, do I have the money, whatever. Maybe take a plea on a lesser charge and then maybe fight from the inside if you can deal with it. That's all I can say. But I think you need to put the best foot forward. You need to raise that money, and plus, there's a lot of crowdfunding sites. If you're innocent, state your case to the people. There's a lot of people just like me that don't want to see an innocent person go to jail, that don't mind kicking in $20, $10. You know what I'm saying, to help you pay for Johnny Cochran. A lot of attorneys, a lot of high-end attorneys will do a lot of pro bono work too. A lot of times just to get their names in the paper. They'll take that really controversial case, the one with a lot of moral outrage, and just to get their names in the paper. You might luck up with that attorney.
Well, I always tell people, like, I actually knocked off 2 years off my sentence when I got to jail. before I was sentenced and I started researching, I read the Black's Law Dictionary. I studied a lot of the statutes and the codes, and I just really became familiar with the law. And a lot of people, that are in situations, they don't realize they can read a book just like an attorney. You can make sense of the same thing, so you can question when they say something to you. They're not blowing smoke up your ass.
That's right.
So take the time to actually do your own research, and you'd be surprised. Like you said, most of the people inside who've gotten themselves out have done their own research and then presented that to some college, students who are like, pre-law, and they've already set the foundation for them to argue. So, you have to be proactive. And like you said, the law favors those who are, proactive.
That's right. That's right. And you got to get, attorneys are people too, right? Let's say you're dealing with an ethical attorney. You got to give them something to work with, right? And then you got, like you said, you got those that are just going to kind of shine you on and take your money, and if you don't do the research to see that what they're telling you is true or not true, then, you're just getting suckered, But yeah, that ultimately that's how it goes. Is the law favors the diligent, the prepared. That's the I don't have any advice for somebody that it's not going to be good advice if somebody hangs a bogus charge on another person. It's just not. It's already bad. You got that stigma. You got your family, your loved ones looking at you sideways. And going back to my situation with that citizen, when he originally called me, I couldn't find anything to substantiate it, right? There was no police report. There was no record that this man had ever been questioned or that anything had gone down. Then 6 months later, I hadn't heard a word from him. He'd been charged, had to pay the bail money, had to get a new attorney, had to get, and was looking at a minimum of 5 years. Now, he was going up on state, but the feds could have taken charge of that case at any time. And, it could have been more time, you know what I'm saying? So by the time I read this report, I thought, oh my God, it's legit. It's right here in my face. And and this guy's been charged. What the hell's he gone through? So when I picked up the phone, and I called him, I said, look, dude, I didn't know you got charged. And I'm looking at this. I could hear some surprise in his voice, like, what, I can't believe somebody's calling me from there. And he was distrustful, thinking maybe I was trying to bait him or something, to say something. I just come out with it, and I was like, dude, I remember what you told me. Now I see that you have been charged. I see what's going on. All I can do is run it up the chain, man. I did not ignore you. I could not find anything to substantiate it, right? Eventually he trusted me, and basically I ended up talking to his attorney after I talked to the district attorney and got the charges dropped on the guy. But I mean, by the time I'd reached back out to him, man, his whole world had been destroyed. His wife was getting ready to walk out the door on him because she didn't know what to believe. There was at one point, this guy was threatened that the investigating officers were going to come down there, serve a search warrant in front of his wife and his kids, tear his house apart and all this other, and make a big damn production if he didn't toe the line, come in and give a full confession and statement and everything else. God, man, I can't imagine living under that. I cannot imagine. And I mean, that kind of impact, it's a whole lot more than just you going to jail. It's your whole life, man. It's devastating. And I think officers need to realize that. And I think the best way that you make them realize that is you start looking at the financial consequences of you making a bullshit case.
And what would you say in closing, like as far as to other officers who are maybe in a similar situation or who have dealt with a situation similar to yours, man, as far as, what they could, expect or look forward to, man? Because like you said, it's there's consequences to being somebody who stands by their oath.
That's right. So as the law stands right now, you're looking at your case being heard in state court. There's going to be caps on any amount of money that you might possibly recover. It's going to be heard by a judge that your chief or sheriff or whoever might have supported their campaign, might have even contributed to it. As it stands right now, you've got to think about those kind of things. But in the end, you gave an oath. I'll be damned if I'm going to betray my oath over a fucking job. I'm just not. You know, I'm not going to sell my soul over a job. You got to make that decision. And what I did in my situation, they basically said that my job was being eliminated. They couldn't pin any kind of misconduct on me because I did my job right. So they came up with it. First, they tried to get me with a nepotism charge because my wife was a patrol officer, but we were in two different divisions, right? I was in investigations division. She was in patrol. I reported directly to the chief and above. She reported through a series of sergeants and lieutenants and everybody else up, ultimately. So there was no way I could end up supervising. So they came at me with that, and I'm like, that's not, you're betraying not only the policy that's been ratified, but you've got the vice mayor is the father of the assistant chief. Nobody's getting, you expect me not to see that shit? So I knew it was bullshit, but the writing's on the wall. Ultimately, they're going to get you if they want you. So you do what I did. I was fortunate enough, I had enough time in. I put my paperwork in. My decision was made. I'm gonna fight you from the outside. I put my paperwork in. I sleep well at night. I'm angry. I've been angry for a long time about it because I did the job right. I saved a lot of people. I've saved some lives. I've done some good. I've helped a lot of people out. I love the profession. I love the camaraderie of being with other police officers, and we basically that was my whole social structure was taken away from me because all of a sudden I'm under suspicion of being some kind of rat. Those that weren't directly involved in that don't really know what the hell happened, so they got to kind of and I don't blame them. Kind of back out. They don't want nothing to rub off on them. I don't blame them. Those that I would socialize with and hang out with felt just like I did. They would lay their life down for anybody at any time if that person was in harm, in harm's way. It's the ones above them, man. It's the ones above them. It's it's the ones that hire and fire that chief of police. Let's be honest. There's judges. There are judges that are, shady. It's those kind of people right there that are the real actors in those kind of situations. Those are the ones that are propping the blue wall up. You see what I'm saying? Cops will make a mistake from time to time. There's a mistake. As long as you get out of that car on a call or on a scene with the right intentions in your heart, you're gonna be okay. Because if you make a mistake, you got the wrong guy in handcuffs, you're gonna go, I got the wrong guy in handcuffs. You're gonna release him. If you get out, or if you made a mistake, whatever, you made that mistake because you were led to believe that this was the situation that you acted on, right? Ultimately, in the end, you're going to be okay. Now, when you start seeing deliberate actions by officers where they've gone out of their way to investigate somebody, and when you write a police report, that shit didn't just slip out of your mouth. When you start typing out a false lie police report, that's deliberate. That's a sign of intent. That's different. And that's the kind of shit that's got to stop. Let's go back to Minneapolis, right? Let's look at Chauvin. That guy got away. You could look at his face and tell that guy got away with that before. He got away with that before. Politics out of it. Let's look at the government that was over the top of him that allowed this dude to remain there. He had no fear. He's got his hand in his pocket, got his knee on the guy's neck for absolutely no reason whatsoever, torturing another human being. Didn't kill. I don't think it killed him. I think excited delirium killed him. I think Chauvin could have acted to stop that from happening. I think Chauvin should have recognized that. I think he did recognize it. He just didn't give a shit. He's a sadist. But let's look at this. Let's look at what allowed him to remain a cop. You had Tao or Teo. He's standing there. You could see on his face that shit it wasn't working. It wasn't right. He didn't jump on it. Why? What's influencing them? What's keeping that agency from doing the right thing every day, all the time? You know, and that was my first chief told me this, and I'll never forget this man's name, and I'm just gonna say his name. I think he's passed away now. His name is Preston Robinson. I had another one named Jackie Moore. Both of them said, as a cop, it's the greatest job in the world because you have the ability to do the right thing every day. Somebody that got lost in that agency with that officer, and there's got to be checks and balances in place to keep that shit from happening anymore. But you're not going to fix it by targeting just cops. You're just not. So if people are serious about real change, start looking at those elected officials.
Hey, there you have it. Big Herc fresh out, always keeping it real.